Every town has a dark side. Serial killers. Why on God's green earth are we so interested in them? Ted Bundy, the Zodiac, John Gacy, the list goes on. We've put them on a pedestal and made these beasts icons in our culture as they've captured our collective imaginations, making us wonder how someone so cold could actually exist in our world. As a result, they are the subject of numerous movies, series, and novels, and have inspired countless others in the media. But again, the question is why? Maybe part of the truth is because there's a little darkness inside each and every one of us. And these killers fascinate us so much because right now, they could be sitting at our own dinner table, or even lying next to us in bed, and we have no idea about their true sinister nature. And that, right there, is a morbid thought. Hey guys, it's Andrew, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Everytown, where today we're talking about serial killers currently hunting in our communities. Despite some common misconceptions that say serial killers basically don't exist today, the reality is that they're out there right at this very moment. The numbers are supposedly smaller than from back in the day, with the FBI currently believing there's anywhere between 30 to 50 active serial murderers in the US. But some say that number could be much higher. And these killers have had to get smarter as technology has increased their chances of getting caught. But technology also allows them access to things that were never possible before. Make no mistake about it, they're out there. So let's head to a couple of towns around the country and see exactly what they're up to at this very moment. If there ever was a golden age of serial killers, it was in the 1970s and 80s.
For those of you who lived through the days when the man called the Night Stalker roamed the streets of Southern California.
The notorious serial killer Dean Corll.
This happened back in the 1970s when Corll and two others went on a killing spree in Houston.
If you've lived in the Wabash Valley a while, then you likely know the name Larry Eyler. It was one of the largest serial killer cases ever, with
This didn't happen randomly either. It had everything to do with the culture and where society was at during this time in the US. And there were approximately 770 active serial killers in the US in the 1980s alone. And back then was essentially the first time ever that we lived in a world of abundance, where our basic needs were all met. All sorts of food was available at grocery stores. The economy was doing well, which allowed for people to focus on expanding their minds, so to speak. And there was civil unrest in the 60s and 70s due to the Vietnam War protests. This signaled the decline of traditional values, which produced the soils in which people could grow. And that included bad people. It was also a time when it became easier for serial killers to pick up and kidnap their prey through hitchhiking, as well as with the expanded transportation system available to the American public. By the time we entered the 90s and 2000s, that number of active serial killers started to get lower. One reason for the dip was because of stranger danger being ingrained in all the kids, so people essentially stopped hitchhiking and definitely stopped trusting strangers. But an even bigger reason was that law enforcement became much more sophisticated, specifically in technology and forensic science. This meant that for killers, it became more difficult to evade the police. As a result, the number of active serial killers had dropped to around 100 by the 2010s, a considerably lower figure than it was before the 90s. But just because the numbers are down, doesn't mean it's over. You can rest assured that there are still active serial killers walking among us, stalking in our communities. And the ability of these predators to adapt and exploit the vulnerabilities of modern society should not be underestimated. And couple that with the new challenges faced by law enforcement, such as an increased volume of calls overall just because of a larger population, that means the threat of serial killers hasn't completely disappeared. In a country with an average of 272,000 deaths each month, it's really hard to spot a pattern that could help us identify a potential serial killer. And just to give you some perspective, back in 1980, the average number of deaths was around 166,000, almost half what it is today, and that made it easier to narrow down culprits and hone in on suspects. But no matter where you are, speculation will always arise when a bunch of bodies start popping up in one place. And right now, that's happening in a few different spots all across America.